Now the programme, let's bring you some football because the World Cup is in its final stretch. A quick look for you then at the games coming up this week. England are to take on Argentina on Thursday for their place in the final. That's at 9 p.m. Paris time. And then 24 hours earlier, it's France who'll be playing Spain in their semi-finals match. Now, even though Spain are a formidable side, it is Les Bleus who are thought to be the favourite, not just in that semis, but also to go all the way and lift the trophy. Spain shouldn't be underestimated, though, having beaten France in the Euros in 2024. Camille Cocoron has our report.
Throngs of fans gathered in Dallas to greet the French players on Sunday. Their Tuesday semi-final against Spain will be the first time Les Bleus have played outside of the East Coast. The match will take place in this massive air-conditioned indoor stadium, promising more favourable conditions for the French, who endured gruelling temperatures against Paraguay and Morocco. It's an edge they'll need in taking on this Spanish team, which has a history of dashing France's hopes. La Roja has emerged victorious in their last two encounters, both of which were also semi-finals.
We're really looking forward to this match. In my opinion, these are the two best teams in the World Cup. But anyway, we're not afraid at all. I think if anyone can take on France, it's us.
But this year's French team boasts some serious strengths. A strong attack combined with a solid defence that has allowed Les Bleus to keep a clean sheet for the last three games.
I think we're aware of our qualities. We know that Spain also has a very good squad. They've also had a great adventure here. I think all the opponents are very good teams with very good players and we respect them. But our goal, of course, is to win.
A victory for Spain would put them on track to recreate their European Championship and World Cup double victory of the early 2010s. Meanwhile, a France win would qualify the team for a third consecutive World Cup final, something no team has achieved since Brazil did so between 1994 and 2002.
Well, ahead of that match, France have also had to confront a particular menace off the pitch, racism directed at the squad from supporters and from politicians. On Friday, the former Prime Minister of Spain, Mariano Rajoy, wrote in a newspaper column that the French national team, quote, does not have any French players. Now, comments like that do not exist in a vacuum. Days earlier, French prosecutors opened an investigation into incitement to hatred. This after a senator in Paraguay racially abused Kylian Mbappé. She described the star French player as a colonized Cameroonian pretending to be French. So why then are we hearing such explicitly racist outbursts directed towards this French side? And is FIFA doing enough to stamp it out? Well, with me to discuss is Dr Leon Moosavi, who is a sociologist of race and religion, and he looks at how that intersects with football. Thanks for joining us here on France 24. Good to speak to you.
Thank you.
First of all, what was your initial reaction then when you heard the language being used by those two politicians I mentioned in Spain and in Paraguay?
Well, it doesn't surprise me because we hear this type of rhetoric from politicians around the world, the type of rhetoric that suggests that you can only be from a certain country if you have a certain ethnic or racial identity. This is an old idea. It's becoming increasingly less fashionable, but there are people in politics, in some sections of the media, and also in the streets, in the communities, who have this view. But the reality is that, as we know, in countries like the UK or in France, there are many people who are from ethnic, racial, minoritized backgrounds who are passionate sort of fans, and even in this case, players of the national teams of those European countries that they were born and raised in. And in many cases, their parents or even their grandparents were also born and raised in.
Yeah, and as you say, look, France is obviously not the only squad by any means in this competition that has a diverse group of players. Why then do you think the French side and Kylian Mbappé in particular has come under such attack?
Well, obviously, I think because of Mbappe's talents and his
Yeah.
success, he's had an incredible World Cup, as I'm sure you and your viewers know. Sometimes this generates resentment and hatred and jealousy. And for some people who maybe don't have enough of a sophisticated analysis to offer, they resort to racism. And racism we see in football sometimes coming to the fore because that's the only language that some people know as a way of making their point. But sadly, I think what it really reveals is the deeper underlying social tensions that we have about questions to do with identity and belonging, and who fits into the nation, and who's one of us and who is not one of us, who is welcome and who is not welcome. So these are moments really when I think those deeper prejudices, these underlying intolerances are coming to the fore, and we're getting a glimpse of them through the footballing space, which is echoing what we're seeing in other sectors of society.
Do you get a sense then that there is some kind of link here between the racism in football and the rise of right-wing populism in a number of countries in the West?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, it's no secret that across Europe and in other places in the world, there is a surge of populism in many cases. The type of racism which used to be quite fringe, it's always been there, of course, but it used to be quite fringe. It used to be quite taboo. In my mind, it seems like it's become normalized in many respects, and that's why you have people having to resort to voting for people like Count Binface in the UK, who has to ridicule the type of positions that are expressed by showing just how strange it is that in the political apparatus in many countries, certain types of views of immigrants, of people who have got diverse heritage, have become normalized. And I think it's only through moments like in football, where people should be united, and through using satire and humor, that people are able to actually undermine the popular sentiment that is rising, where racism, xenophobia, and other forms of prejudice, unfortunately, are becoming quite mainstream, and a lot of us are really worried about that.
Of course, as you say, this is a broader societal problem. This isn't something that we just see when it comes to football. But what is particular, it seems to me, at this competition is that it's being in part hosted in the United States, a country that has an administration that has sort of long embraced xenophobic rhetoric. Do you think that's one of the reasons why we are talking about racism so much at this tournament?
Well, I think maybe one of the reasons we're talking about it is because nowadays players like Mbappe and others who have actually spoken out about it. I mean, in the past, in generations that have gone by, I mean, there were always people who tried to challenge it and speak out about the type of racism that existed in the game. But nowadays, perhaps there's a new generation of footballers who feel more confident and more empowered and less apologetic about the victimization that's targeted against them. There's many reasons why this has happened. There's many things that have changed. Could be something to do with social media. It could be something to do with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. It could be, there are many other factors, but what we see nowadays is that players, I think, more than ever before, and fans, by the way, are willing to stand up and challenge the racism and draw attention to it. And I think institutionally, amongst FIFA, amongst the media, there is more awareness than there's ever been about this problem, and there's more willingness to talk about it. Not to say that we've done enough, not to say that we've solved the problem, but it's definitely on the agenda nowadays more than it has been in the past. And I think this might be why we're talking about it more and more these days.
You say there's more awareness and that FIFA is more aware than before, but what more does the World Football governing body need to do to try and stamp this out?
Well, I think what we see from footballing authorities, whether it's FIFA or other organizations or clubs that are in football, is we generally see quite a strict approach to dealing with racism. There are harsh punishments that are given to players, to fans who are found guilty of, enacting racism within the game. But the problem is that often racism is not obvious, it's not explicit. Sometimes it's discreet, sometimes it's indirect, sometimes it's done in ways which, are sort of in a grey area, but we know what the underlying sentiment is. And that makes it very difficult for FIFA or any other organization to tackle the racism in football sometimes, because we obviously have a principle of innocent until proven guilty, and everyone deserves a chance to represent themselves. And so when racism is couched in these hidden subtle and covert ways, as it often is in football and in society more generally, it becomes hard to challenge it, to punish it, to hold people to account. But that's why, like I said, people respond to racism not necessarily through punishment, but through ridicule and satire. Football fans and football chants, for example, are an amazing way in which football fans can be activists in pushing back against the type of racism. So in a way, I think I have more hope or more sort of expectation that it's going to be the football fans who are going to hopefully challenge any type of racism that appears through, asserting collectively their voice against racism, while still hoping that FIFA and other organisations will take it seriously and do what they can.
All right, Dr. Leon Moosavi, thank you for that message of hope. Good to talk to you. Thank you so much.